as Ram Dass says, we're all busy keeping each other's costumes straight, right? So, yes, with your definition of one of the first places to find that gift is when you're doing what makes you happiest. Yes, but if that's from an ego self making me happiest, it might be because I'm having sex. It might be because I'm making a whole bunch of money. It might be because I've just beaten somebody in a game. I don't know.
Sure.
But if it's from our larger self, even the term happy takes on a different meaning. To me, actually, happy, while an enjoyable experience, isn't something I primarily focus on. I really focus more on inner peace, because what has always been in the background in my life has been this drumbeat of negativity, of fear, of worry, of anxiety, of really the existential angst over realizing I've only got a finite time in this form, and I hope the hell I'm right that there's something after this, right?
And so for me, what the transformation has been is a renewed passion, not only for life, but work.
Yeah.
I want to do this work to help people uncover that they don't have to have the dark moments in life last for very long at all. If they'll just stop and they'll spend enough time thinking about their lives, how they've lived it, how they want to live it, the world they want to view, how they want to play a role in that, and just release it all. Release the pressure that this world puts on us to be something they think they should be.
Beautiful.
That's the greatest gift I've gotten from all this, Al, is that I don't feel pressure. I feel an obligation to use my gifts and help people, but I don't feel this angst of, oh, I'm going to disappoint my boss, or I'm not going to compete at a level in the industry that I once did. I'm not going to recruit enough salespeople. And there's nothing wrong with people that have to do that job. I did it for a long time. It's necessary. But put it in perspective in your life. Otherwise, it can actually ruin you. And we've seen people whose lives have been ruined by that. Hi there, Al. How are you, bud?
Brother Stacey, I'm fine. How are you this morning?
I'm incredible. I'm actually very excited about our time today because of the subjects that we're going to cover, and I'm anxious to jump in. So what do you want to talk about today?
I want to talk about a realization I had last night at age 72 that I'm hopeful is helpful to anyone who is watching or listening to these, which I hope somebody is. You and I are enjoying it, if nothing else.
Well, if nothing else happens, Al, I learn every time we do this. So
As
thank
I
you
do. As I get to kind of co-create some magic here. But
exactly.
I think the topic of today that hopefully will be of interest to people in my mind and heart, Stacey, is really captured in a stained glass phrase my wife has on our wall that she bought in an antique store in 1980 that says this: your life is a gift from God. Whatever you think God is. Your life is a gift from God. What you do, that's your gift back to God. That quote changed my life because it had me decide to pursue this work that I felt completely unqualified for. I knew nothing about. I didn't go take some class to be a coach. I didn't get certified from somebody who's selling me certifications that, by their standards of what a coach is. I just decided to pursue this as a premise of what I think our topic could be today, which is every human being, I believe, every human being has a unique gift that they were given when they were given human form, human life. Stacey, Al, everybody who's watching this, everybody in the world. The job of life is ultimately to discover what that gift is, which often takes time and hard rock mining and isn't easy, so that we can live from that gift and contribute to the world in such a way that at the end of our lives, we understand why we were here in the first place. And if people can try on believing that as possibly true for them, and then learn how they can actually discover what their unique gift is in all the world and how to apply it, not only to get to the end of their life and feel like it matters that they lived because they made a difference in other people's lives, but really to complete the circle of trust of life and gratitude for life and God who gave us life. If you believe that, I do, you do. In such a way that it shifts the way we relate to people with what life we have left. So if I were proposing a topic today, I think that would be a topic, and it comes out of an experience I had last night about various events I have upcoming today, and I believe you've had some similar realizations in your world. So, how does that topic work for you? And if it does work for you, would you do us the kindness of starting by sharing with us why this topic is relevant to you, given your life and your recent experiences?
Absolutely. I love the topic, Al, because I think very few people actually go through this life recognizing their own unique gifts. And I think the reason that they don't, Al, is they start comparing themselves to others. Somebody's better at something. Maybe I'm vocationally doing some work and I'm not at the top. Maybe I'm in the middle. Maybe I'm not. But because of
You mean like I've compared myself to you for 30 years and fallen short? Got it. Love it.
and how wrong you were, right? It truly is, but we tend to compare ourselves to others and the gifts that we see in others. So it's easier for us to see the gifts in others than it is ourselves.
First truth. Love it.
And so I think that what we might do, maybe the greatest gift we can give to people in these podcasts is to help them have inner reflection and learn about their value. If indeed God created us and you believe that, then there must be massive value in that human life. And I believe it, you believe it.
Beautiful.
And I think about that when people they don't stop to think about it because they're having to make a living, they're busy, their time is so consumed with accomplishments and doing things that they don't have time to stop and consider who they are and who they want to be. So I think there's a question that we could ask people that might start the foundation of their gifts. What are you doing when you are at your very best and you're happy and confident? That's probably some signs about what your gifts and talents are. What do you think about that, Al?
I agree with that. I would probably reframe that just a bit, not to reframe it, but maybe to clarify, because I believe, as you and I have spoken on many occasions, that we really have, as adults, we have a choice of two different selves. We have our level 3 ego self that is about warm, safe, and dry, about exaltation, about accumulation, about admiration. It's about having other people see us in a certain way so that we can feel better about ourselves. And it's a relative reality of better, worse, good, bad, right, wrong, all that. Then I think we have this other self that is really who we were before we took human form, who we are after we leave this body, and who we are within it. But we kind of have amnesia around, because this former self, this ego self, steps to the fore and therefore is who we think we are. As Ram Dass says, we're all busy keeping each other's costumes straight, right? So yes, with your definition of one of the first places to find that gift is when you're doing what makes you happiest. Yes, but if that's from an ego self making me happiest, it might be because I'm having sex. It might be because I'm making a whole bunch of money. It might be because I've just beaten somebody in a game. I don't know.
Sure.
But if it's from our larger self, even the term happy takes on a different meaning. To me, actually, happy, while an enjoyable experience, isn't something I primarily focus on. I really focus more on inner peace, because what has always been in the background in my life has been this drumbeat of negativity, of fear, of worry, of anxiety, of really the existential angst over realizing I've only got a finite time in this form, and I hope the hell I'm right that there's something after this, right? So for me, I would almost refine it to say when you feel most in flow and content and least competitive and least adverse and least worried and least fearful and without doubt in a state of natural faith, probably would be how I would have to restate it for me, just to make sure I'm coming from my higher level 4 soul self and value self rather than my level 3 ego self. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, this is why I hang with you, Al. It's that you're able to bring clarity to my intentions. That's exactly what I mean. Is when you're not being selfish about your level 3 identity, and you're really thinking about the bigger world, universe, your role in that. what skills do you enjoy being engaged in? And
Yeah.
that can lead us back to those talents and gifts and so forth. But I think that's what all of these episodes are about, is literally
Yeah.
how do we identify ourselves and how do we interact with other people based on that identity. We were talking earlier this morning that I think we spend a whole lifetime creating our own internal identity, and it's influenced by outside forces, our family, our friends, our circumstances, the failures and successes we have. But there's so many people that have their identity defined by what they do in their life. And so, for an example, would be a stay-at-home mom may build her or his, if it's a stay-at-home dad, their identity around raising those children and being at every PTA event and every athletic event after school. And then all of a sudden, those children grow up and they go off. And now we're empty nesters. And now, what is my worth?
Yeah.
The other side of it could be an executive. This could be true of you and I.
Yeah.
That we spend a career leading people, building an image, building influence, and then ultimately it is going to come to an end, whether by our choice or someone else's.
Yeah.
And then what happens to that internal identity when we're alone, maybe 2:00 in the morning, waking up, wondering if it all mattered? And so I think part of that, these two tie together of how do you build an identity that's based upon your level 4 soul identity, understanding the value you are to the world, what your values are, and what your gifts in that are, because that should define ultimately how we perceive ourselves. And so that's our identity, right? How we perceive ourselves. Others are always going to have an identity of us. You talk about this in your book. What other people think of you is never your business. Don't worry about that. So that's my thoughts.
Well, I think it's great. So what I propose is maybe if we go at this in a few steps. I think step one would be that I would love to have you share how you discovered what your gift is and now what you're going to do with it. I'll do the same. So that'll be step two. And then step three, what we see in what you and I both went through as perhaps a pathology that other people could follow for them to discover their own gifts and begin to explore what we're talking about as a pathway to, in a sense, salvation, at least within this life, i.e., living outside of fear, anxiety, worry, depression, dark states of mind, and therefore really squeezing the juice out of the preciousness of this time that we have.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you, if you're okay with that, why don't you lead us off and
Sure.
tell us, how did this awakening occur for you, Stacey, at age 60, or how old are you?
61.
61. How did so whenever it happened, how did it happen for you? And what did you go through before that led to it, and what are you now going to do with it now that you've found it?
Yeah. So I think for me to answer that, I have to really be honest about my whole life and what's been in this, I guess, in the middle of my heart, but maybe not manifested perfectly throughout my lifetime. So I've always been a person that cared about the world, cared about other people, certainly wanted to honor God with my life, and therefore I needed to use the gifts and talents that He's provided me in that effort. And so I went through an entire career of 38 years in the mortgage industry, as we've talked in the past, trying to lead other people, obviously trying to build business and so forth. But I was always trying to coach others during that process. So it was kind of an evolution for me over a course of a lifetime. But there are some abrupt moments that impact us too. You call them epiphanies, awakenings, whatever it may be. And I've had a few of those in the last couple of years. And so the most recent, of course, was really exiting the mortgage industry, not necessarily of my own choice, and really considering what's next and how do I continue this journey in my life to make a difference and to not just head off into retirement and watch my world go from this to this gradually over time to where I no longer want to walk out the front door. But I want to.
And let me ask you to pause at that moment when you exited the mortgage industry, maybe by your choice, maybe not, and take me into that purgatory phase briefly. Take us into that phase of where was your head at in before you discovered your gift and what you are to do, Stacey? What were you thinking every day, and how were you feeling about you and life?
Yeah, I would say probably feelings on both sides of light and darkness. The light was probably some relief that maybe I hadn't been pursuing what I was supposed to for the last number of years.
Right.
The darkness was, oh no, what now? I'm no for the first time in 40 years, I'm without a job. I'm without an income. People are going to view me as a failure. I'm going to become irrelevant. Everybody's going to forget my name. And then what? And so there's that moment where you have some ability to go to despair. Maybe you can go to depression, those kinds of things. But I had enough fortitude to know that if I think about it the right way, the next chapter of my life or the next scene in my movie could be my best. It could be the encore of everything that's prepared me up to this point.
Yeah.
And so I literally called you out when this was occurring, and I knew you had gone through something similar. And I'd also seen you dedicate your life for a quarter of a century now to helping others uncover their unique gifts and live their best life and find their way out of suffering into peace and harmony and brief happiness, if that's what we call it, but salvation, if you will. And so when I came to you and we started talking about those things, I think you recognized very quickly in our conversations that maybe this was the opportunity, maybe this was a gift to me to take the time to listen to God, to get good advice from people like Al Colleen, and uncover where that energy and passion could come together and go make a difference in the world. Because here's the worst thing that I think can happen to people as they age is that they lose passion.
Yeah.
And when you lose passion, you're going to lose your energy. You're going to become unhealthy. You're going to have mental issues with depression or sadness or grief or whatever it may be. And so for me, what the transformation has been is a renewed passion, not only for life, but work.
Yeah.
I want to do this work to help people uncover that they don't have to have the dark moments in life last for very long at all. If they'll just stop and they'll spend enough time thinking about their lives, how they've lived it, how they want to live it, the world they want to view, how they want to play a role in that, and just release it all. Release the pressure that this world puts on us to be something they think they should be.
Beautiful.
That's the greatest gift I've gotten from all this, Al, is that I don't feel pressure. I feel an obligation to use my gifts and help people, but I don't feel this angst of, oh, I'm going to disappoint my boss, or I'm not going to compete at a level in the industry that I once did. I'm not going to recruit enough salespeople. And there's nothing wrong with people that have to do that job. I did it for a long time. It's necessary. But put it in perspective in your life. Otherwise, it can actually ruin you. And we've seen people whose lives have been ruined by that. So let's not do that.
That's beautiful insight. So tell us what you discovered your gift is and how it is that you have now committed you're going to contribute that gift unto the lives of others.
Sure. Well, I think, it's always hard for people who want to be seen as human people to talk about their gifts and talents, right? I actually think it dishonors God when we do that. And I've probably practiced that. I know you have too, Al, because we've talked about this, that we know we have these gifts and skills, but if we tell the world about them, it sounds boastful, and therefore it's not humble, it's arrogant. And there is a place where that can become arrogant, right? We don't even have to point anything out. People can just see it every day on TV. But for me, it is the gift of, I guess it's the gift of helping others find the best in themselves. I have the gift of encouragement. I have the gift of seeing the potential in people that they don't see in themselves. I have the gift of seeing the beauty in people, not their shortcomings. It's why the start of my personal life vision says, it's a world where people have unconditional positive regard and love for one another. That's who I am. So my gift is, I think I have gifts in leadership. I have intellectual ability to reason and have logical thoughts about how businesses should be conducting themselves and leading their teams and the culture they should be creating. And I have the ability to ask people questions that may seem uncomfortable, but are so important to them living their best life. And
Yeah.
so I don't know if you probably can describe it better.
I think that's beautifully described. You mentioned something that people may or may not be familiar with as a term, a personal life vision.
Yeah.
So if you would share with us what your personal life vision is, and I tend to see personal life visions as more than a declarative statement of look at how nobly I think or I believe or whatever. I see it as a promise to God
Mm.
of who I'm going to be to the best of my ability every moment I can remember to be it, which I hope is ultimately constantly. So
Yeah.
what's your personal life vision as a conviction and a commitment to your fellow travelers in this life at this time and to God, brother?
Yeah. And Al, I see it that way too. I think it is a promise to God. And it's also a filter for my mind when I really need to live up to it.
Right.
And so here's what mine says. My personal life vision is a world where people have unconditional, positive regard and love for themselves, where hearts overflow with compassion, kindness, and generosity, and where enlightened minds change the world, bringing peace and freedom to all.
Wow.
And so that's
Wow.
what I want to be to the world. And I hope that I can live up to that. I know that if I continue to pursue, I guess, my spiritual life, I pursue excellence, I pursue making a difference in people's lives selflessly. I guess the pursuing thing maybe isn't the right message we want to get, because that kind of comes back to I have to do something to prove I've done it. It's not that. It's just how do I interact with people in this world? I guess that's it.
Well, and I don't necessarily hear it as you pursuing it so that people know you've done it. I tend to when it comes to you, honestly, I think of you as one of the disciples of Christ
Mm.
that after he transitioned had to still be in this world and go do something with that. They could hide so they didn't get in trouble, or they could boldly go out into a ministry of their belief system that if you're a Christian, you believe, and if you aren't, you may not. But put aside the religious implications of this for a moment and just think about the courage it would take if you were one of those disciples to see your master and your inspiration die, come back, and then go away again, but not really. And now you're still here in this form, and you've just had a palpable proof of the truth of what the whole gig is about that no one seems to know, and you have a choice. You can go out into the world and you can talk about this at the risk of literally of torture, your own life, all the rest of it. But it's so important that it's worth that risk.
Yeah.
That's kind of honestly, Stacey, what inspires me about you, because you've been a huge success in business. You're a name I mention to people around the country. They always know who you are and who you've worked for and what role you served. And it's a testimony to how well you did in that former life in making those attempts. And from a worldly perspective, you've got nothing, but you should only feel pride about the life that you lived. I'm actually far more intrigued and inspired by you today, out of work, other than you now have your own company, because I think you've decided to convert what you learned in that first segment of your life over now onto a path of wisdom that isn't from you or me, but through you and through me, out of the purity of your personalized vision and mine. I think we are allowed to support and uplift other people as long as we don't for a moment begin to take credit for it or think that it's us that's doing it. That sounds mystical and it sounds, airy fairy and all that. I don't care. I've just found experientially it's too true, too consistently, like every day. I had a conversation, just short sidebar, had a conversation with a fellow yesterday who called me from Australia on request of his cousin because he has extreme alcohol problems. And he's been in rehab and he's done all these things. And he was talking about what didn't work for him with AA and rehab and all, and yet he's worried that he's not going to be able to stay on the boat. And I won't bore you with the details, but I had an entirely different conversation with it. By the end of it, he said, that makes absolute sense. And now I understand. And that guy doesn't live here anymore. I don't need to worry anymore about going to meetings or anything like that. It's not me anymore. That wasn't me. That
Mm.
wasn't me. It's never me. I've had 24,000 hours of conversations with people, and I don't know what gets said on them from my side of it. I hear my clients, and they often want to give me credit for it, and I quickly dissuade it because I think I'm only allowed to actually, in my case, provide my gift to the extent that I see it as on loan from God. It's not something that says anything about me. I realize that the less I think of me in an ego sense, the more God trusts me to contribute to other people in a pure sense. And that's where what we were talking about with happiness or fulfillment, that's where I trust life, is when I'm in the flow of being nothing and therefore helping you see that you are something that's precious. What's your thought?
Yeah, Al, it's just so many things come to mind with that description. And let's go back to the comment about the disciples after Christ's death and resurrection and so forth. Every one of them died a martyr. And so I think there could be some people saying, oh, if I have to live out my unique gifts, do I have to go through martyrdom?
Yeah.
And the reality is, at some level, the answer is yes. Not to the point of death, prayerfully, hopefully. But Al, think of both you and I. Okay. So for those of you that don't know, Al was an incredible leader and owner of a mortgage entity for many, many years. So much that it was so valuable that he was able to sell it and didn't have the intention of leaving, but things changed. I spent nearly 40 years leading and building sales divisions in the industry. And for both of us, you first, and you've had the longer career doing it, you had a little martyrdom to leave that, to have the courage to walk away, to live out that gift that you know that you were supposed to give to the world, that you have on loan from God. I'm now doing it. And quite frankly, it's scary to do that because we've worked so long having our identity to some degree built upon the response of others for what we've done for them, how we've responded. And all of a sudden, you can hide and have this feeling that if I really pursue my passion and my God-given gifts, it won't be valued by anybody. That's a real fear, folks. And I'm serious. Don't take that lightly, that you may find yourself in a path in life, whether it's in your personal life or your career, that if you really stopped and you thought about it, you would say, this is not congruent with my values or my purpose or the gifts I've given. I'm just exchanging my time for money, or I'm exchanging it because I'm afraid that if I don't have this relationship personally, I'll never have what I want in life. And it won't lead anywhere. It will lead to a point where you come close to the end of your life and you go, oh my goodness, why didn't I take more risk around my values and my gifts? And I don't want people to have regrets like that. And life can come and go in a hurry. Al, I don't know that you know this or not, whether you saw it, but a former significant leader in the mortgage industry, David Stevens, passed away this past few days. David was 66 years old and a massive, massive success. And many of us got to know him. I didn't know him well. Others knew him better, but I also knew his heart and I knew what he was about. But David didn't get to live till 90 to discover whether he was following his passions or not. We aren't guaranteed that. And so there's not time to waste on this either, right? And so there is some risk to follow your gifts and your passions, but the rewards are far greater because of that internal peace value, that you will become selfless when you follow your gifts and your passions. And that takes all the pressure off. If you don't have to do anything for yourself. Just understand that you still got to work out, be healthy, and manage your finances. That's not what we mean. You don't have to worry about whether you're getting enough, because that's what the world is calling us, is you don't have enough. Go get some more.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, I went through a realization last night that sort of closed the loop for me. I created a personalized vision 25 years ago and 24 years ago. And mine, and yours is beautiful, by the way. Mine, I could live yours and be perfectly happy the rest of my life.
As I could with you.
My personalized vision is a world, Stacey, where all people realize their fullest potential in all ways, spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, economically, all of it. A world of extraordinary relationship. I see a world of Christs, of Buddhas, of Krishnas, of Gandhis. I see a world of enlightened level 4 people in relationship. And I think of that world, think, what would this world be like if instead of fighting over whether you're a liberal or a conservative and you're all this stuff, we were a world full of enlightened beings And then out of those extraordinary relationships between enlightened beings, the extraordinary accomplishments that could happen for all of those beings, their children, and for who knows, other beings in the universe or whatever good we can do. And then the third part is a world where integrity and honorable actions are courageously pursued and commonly experienced. Because to have the courageous choice of acting out of honor and integrity, even when it's not guaranteed and certain what's going to happen, ends up leading to a personal sense of profundity. So pursuing this personalized vision created my business. And it, as I think about it, it's like I've been walking through a miraculous maze where I always thought I had to kind of know where the cheese was and go down this tunnel and get out a map and follow the right tunnel to the right cheese. What I found surprisingly as an old man, because I actually started this in middle age, I started doing this at 48, and now now I look like Methuselah. But um, what I
Not
found
quite.
is it really has it's different than the mouse in the maze chasing the cheese. It's really about following the inner cheese of this inner calling of a personalized vision of intentionality to personify my values. And then what happens walking through this maze of almost white, I think of it as white wooden kind of tunnels, doors open that look invisible. They open up and you fall through it, and then that opens up other tunnels. And frankly, that's you coming into my life and coming into this work with me, Stacey. But that has happened not just once, while it's happened every day consistently on every phone call, every event. And what it's done is it's given me an experience of the quiet presence of God in everyday life where we live. For me, it isn't necessarily some old man in the clouds I'm going to discover when I die. Maybe it is. But more important to me today and here is that I experience God while here. And the way, surprisingly to me, I realize I experience Him is in the interaction with other human beings when I am coming from that place within me that is nothing relative to ego and a transparent um, tube of purpose that is a tube of these values of in my personal vision of love and faith and compassion. When I do that, and I know this probably sounds like crazy talk to people, what happens is it's almost like I feel like God then fills in that gap of my illusion of control and creates miracle after miracle. And what that has done for me is had me see a larger perspective. I'm going to be doing some things today with some folks that is going to be potentially very challenging, confrontational. Hey, it's ripe with all sorts of potential disasters in a worldly sense. And so last night I was, I've been thinking about it pretty heavily for a few days as I tend to. And by nature, I'm a worrier and I'm actually a pessimist by nature. There's a great book by Martin Seligman called Learned Optimism I read until you take a test. And on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being pessimism, 10 being optimism, I'm a 3. So by nature, I see the world in darkness, right? And, I always took that as confirmation of my own lack of worth and mediocrity and why life couldn't be trusted. I was suicidal at 19 because it all just seemed like, what's the purpose? I'm going to live so long and, get laid so much, make so much money. I'm going to do what I do in my life to have sensual experience and accumulation. And then I'm going to die anyway. What's it matter? But what I realized last night was no, if I dial the camera lens back and see the bigger picture, my pessimism, my melancholy, my anxiety, my fear were all ways of my ego trying to protect itself from the uncertainty of life and the realization that something in life is going to come up, if nothing else, my own death, that I'm afraid I'm going to panic in the midst of and not be able to handle and be in this great state of suffering. So all my worry and fear and anxiety was doubt and a lack of any trust of life. And that was really a statement about my lack of trust in me and a desperate attempt for me to protect my own comfort by trying to anticipate what's going to happen and try to control it. And what that led to, rather than kill myself at 19 in a tree in Boulder, Colorado for an hour one night when I sat there at sunset because I got a B in college, and I had committed to getting straight A's. I got a B, I'm a failure. Why even keep going, right? And the family's falling apart and all the dramas happen. I decided I'm going to give life one more chance to study what other people have thought, because maybe they know something I don't know. So I studied all the thought leaders. I studied all the spiritual systems, all the religions, all the psychological systems. I read a whole lot, and I read a lot fast and retain a lot. And what it led to over a lifetime of trial and error and all in this life was this program that has really created meaning in my life, because, as I've shared with you, I get to love people for a living without having to be a hooker. So what I realized last night was this negativity that seemed like such a negative thing actually led to an inquiry and an exploration that gave me a broadening of my repertoire of information, that then, once I was able to go through enough adversity to where I stopped trying to build my ego and realized, well, that's a losing battle. And I just let go of that. I was allowed insight into this other dimension of self that allowed me to serve people. And therefore, the way I had to find the answers to my negativity was to have the courage of faith. I had to decide to trust the future despite its uncertainty. And I had to find a way to do that. And therefore, that's in many ways what I think entitles me to be trusted in the lives of other people who are going through all this same stuff, because I'm beyond the capability of judging you or me or anyone for going through it, because I feel like in many ways I'm the worst guy that ever lived. And therefore, you can't tell me anything that's going to shock me or make me judge you, because I'm too judgmental of myself. So, ironically, this darkness, this melancholy, this pessimism was the first seed that sparked its opposite, that awakened a relationship with an experiential God in my life. And a lot of that experience happens in the course of these conversations with you and with others, that has me see this communion of flow that occurs when we let go of the illusion of separation that is ego, that is doubt, that is the source of our suffering, through the courage of faith that is more than a belief, but an actual commitment to trust life despite its uncertainty. And in doing so, acknowledge a larger force that has got our back. What's your thoughts about all that?
I don't know that we should add anything more to that today, Hal. That is a great way to kind of bring our episode to conclusion. But before we do, I want to say a couple of things. Uncovering your unique gifts and your skills and your talents, and perhaps building your own personal life vision, is a process. And so we couldn't tell you in 1 minute, hey, just go do this after this episode and you'll be in great shape with all that. Reach out to us. We'll take you through a process that'll help you be equipped to do that. And you can live your best life free of any, regrets, so to speak. Doesn't mean you're not going to have emotional changes and challenges. You will, but you'll be equipped to handle them quickly. And people will see a difference in you, because you will be different. You'll be better. You'll be in great alignment with your values and your talents and your purpose. And your life will make a difference in the world. We guarantee you that it will. Really enjoy our conversations, Al, and I'm glad people are watching.
I hope they are. I think there's a reason for people who are watching to be watching. And I hope that they consider that they were meant to see this, because they were meant to either begin or accelerate this exploration. Because, to your earlier point, we don't know when the train runs into the wall in the dark tunnel. So we can't waste a moment of it. Thank you, brother, for being with me on this as always. And thank you, all of you viewers and listeners who are taking the time to consider whether you really have a future that's bigger than you've ever allowed yourself to believe. And perhaps, to Stacey's point, if you feel like you'd like to explore that, one of the things about the way Stacey works and the way I work is we don't invite people to contact us because we're trying to get into your wallet. You may choose to become clients, and then it becomes an economic transaction at some level in some way. But we don't start there. We think what's unique about the way we're approaching this is we truly are here to be embodiments, to the best of our limited ability, of our own personalized visions. If you hear this and you're so moved, please reach out to us so we can at least have a conversation to perhaps remind you of a larger perspective, or a perspective on your life that will shift your reality. Bless you, and bless you, Stacey, for being with me today. And I hope this touches the hearts of people who've watched it.
Absolutely. One final thing, our condolences and prayers out to the Stevens family and friends. He was a great man, a great leader to so many, including me in the industry. And so our hearts are with you. God bless everybody. Have a wonderful day.